So hot off the UPS truck, I have 3 very exciting products to share with you today. I have 2 items from the NARS limited edition holiday collection. So I have the Aura Illuminating Face and Body Powder. And then I also have one of their blush palettes. So this is going to be the lighter option. As of the time of filming, this is the only one that was available on the NARS website. I believe by the time you're watching this, the darker version will be on the Sephora website. So in case you were wondering where that one might show up. And then I also picked up the Dior Backstage Glow Maximizer palette in the shade 002 Frosted Opal Glow. So I'll be doing some comparisons and demos here. That's what this one looks like, by the way. And let you know which of these products, if any, I think are worth your time and money this fall. So let's get into some of the information here. And I will have timestamps down below if you want to jump to swatches or demos or any of that. So let's talk about this Dior palette. First of all, so this is the Dior Backstage Glow Maximizer palette in 002 Frosted Opal Glow. I believe this is permanent. When I first saw pictures of this online, I thought this was going to be a limited edition holiday palette. So that may be reason enough to maybe put this at the bottom of your wish list, just because you will have an opportunity to pick this up in the future with all the other holiday releases coming out. This does retail for $54, and I purchased this from the Dior website. It hasn't shown up yet at Sephora or Ulta or any of those other retailers as far as I know, but that's not to say that it won't. So you get 10 grams of product in this palette, and it is made in Italy. So Dior, once again, made a little bit of a splash because they have reformulated all of their palettes. I have 2 of the, I guess, older ones. So if you're curious about like the change in packaging, this is the Dior Backstage Glow Face Palette, and this is now the Backstage Glow Maximizer Palette. And this was kind of the default or original as far as I know, and those are the shades there. So quite a bit of a different theme, I guess. You have a little bit more kind of bronzery shades, or at least shades that are going to work on a lot more different skin tones. You can see the Dior logo has obviously changed. I kind of like the new logo. It seems like they keep going back and forth between the lowercase and uppercase for what it's worth. And just to show you the back of the packaging, the overall component I think is pretty similar. I do like that the older palette that I have here, it does give you an indication of what the different shades and finishes are going to be. So you have 2 strobe powders, a blush, and a bronze. And of course, that's all kind of skin tone dependent anyway. But just to give you a good look at the back there, it looks like they have lowered the shelf life of this. So this only has a 6-month shelf life versus 12 months in this palette. I don't know how many people really care about that or pay attention to it. And this was also made in Italy. So I have this one, which was kind of the original, like I said, and I might compare the white and the pink shades in these 2, although this is the older formulation, like I said. So I don't know how useful that will be. This was a still other iteration of the Dior logo, as you can see here. So this was the rose gold palette, which I think came out as a limited edition holiday palette in the States one year. I think it was maybe available more widely in Asia from what I understand, but now you can get this color story in the newer formulation. So it's kind of upside down how they have it here. But yeah, those are the shades of this rose gold palette there. This one was also made in Italy and had a 12-month shelf life. So I don't know if I still have the box for this one. I do have the box for this one because I purchased it more recently. So if you have any questions about ingredients or anything like that, or of course swatches, just let me know. Swatch comparisons. So I'll swatch all 4 shades of this new palette. And I really wish they did have some explanation for what the different kind of finishes or whatever are supposed to be. They do call this like a multi-use palette. So those are the 4 products on my, I'm just going to do some hand swatches for now. So I think 2 of these are going to be kind of smoother. That first one I think is definitely more glittery. There's not as big a kind of color difference on the skin as you might think based on how they look in the pan. So I'll compare the white and the pink, and I will demo these on the skin as well. I really don't think that pink is going to be as much of a blush as you might think. So I'll do the white and the pink from this kind of original, if you will. So yeah, so that pink is going to have a lot more pink to it. And then I'll just do the pink, I'll do the very light kind of beige. I'll do the slightly more gold shade as well. Okay, so let me show you. So that's how they look on the skin. So the 2 closest to my wrist are the new opal shade. The 2 in the middle are kind of the original classic one. And then the 3 shades closest to my elbow are the rose gold. So to kind of limit the number of times I have to remove my cheek makeup, I'm going to try and be a little strategic here, especially if that pink shade really isn't going to be a blush. So I have foundation on and I set the foundation, but I don't have any other bronzer, blush, any of that. So taking my Anastasia A23 brush, I'm going to start with, I guess, that light pink. I want to kind of save the most intense sparkle for the end. So, see how this looks. I tried to keep my eye makeup fairly neutral. So yeah, it's pretty subtle, and you know, the lights and everything will kind of make my skin naturally look a bit highlighted, but I think that's nice. It's actually pretty subtle, and I'm removing or trying to remove any product from my brush with the Sigma switch. I'm going to try that more, it's almost a slight lavender, so pick some of that up and go in on this side. So again, pretty subtle. This brush is good because it's a natural hair brush, and so it's good at kind of getting into a more gelée texture. Yeah, those are both going to be pretty subtle. I guess I'm just going to go onto my forehead. So again, wiping off my brush, and I'm going to take the blue, and same idea here. And I'm just going to maybe go above this eyebrow. I think you can see a bit more of kind of a lilac-y reflect. Like it's a little bit more obvious in person maybe, but hopefully you can kind of see that. I'll build it up a little bit. Kind of see that color shift there. So I guess, you know, it's kind of what you want out of a highlight. Let's go into that last one here, which I think is going to be the most kind of obvious on the skin. So and if you do pick up this palette and you want to stick with the more subtle shades, you can always use a shade like this on the eyes or the inner corner just to kind of make use of it without having as much kind of obvious sparkle on the skin. So hopefully that's helpful. So let me remove this base and I'll be back to talk about the NARS products. So I've reapplied my foundation. I am using the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation today in the shade Oslo. And I set that with the Kosas Cloud Set in the shade Airy. I probably should have gone in with like the Dior foundation stick just for ease of removal, but I used a Dior eyeshadow palette. I used the Smoky Essentials, I think it is. Yeah. So I wanted to, I guess, not play favorites. But anyway, let's talk about the NARS products. So this is the Ethereal Aura Blush Palette in the Light Speed variation. So there is going to be a darker one, like I mentioned. This retails for $60, and you get, I think, 3.5 times 6 is the total amount of product you get. Let's do some quick math. So 21 grams, so twice the amount of product, I guess, as the Dior palette. So if you're just comparing it that way, this is a little bit more expensive, but you do get more product. Made in Canada, and you do get 6 shades in here, but 4 are existing shades. So you just have to kind of decide if that is worth it to you. And this has a 12-month shelf life. I'll go ahead and tell you about this little guy, or big guy, I should say. This is the Aura Illuminating Face and Body Powder. Retails for $55, so quite pricey, almost as much as the blush palette, and just a little bit more than the Dior palette. So you get 13 grams of product in here, which is also more than the Dior palette, which I think I said was 10 grams. Yeah, 10 grams. So quite a lot of product here for your money. And this is made in Italy. So they went with an Italian manufacturer, and this has an 18-month shelf life, so 3 times as long as the Dior. So again, you can kind of decide what makes something worth it for you. Let's go ahead and talk about the packaging. So with this blush palette, this has this really gorgeous cover to it, which is textured. You can do that to it, which is a lot of fun. Has the NARS kind of engraved, I guess, in there. And then this is what the back of the palette looks like. So as I said, we get 4 existing shades. So palettes like this, like the Hourglass ones, for example, can be good even if they have a lot of existing shades because you do tend to get a lot of value for your money. A full-size NARS blush, by the way, is 4.8 grams, so about a quarter the amount, roughly. And these are really nice because they made them so that the pans do pop out. So if you were so inclined, you could just pick up your favorite shades or the refills of your favorite shades and then pop them all into a magnetic palette, and then you have your own kind of blush palette. I am a big fan of that, as you know. This is the shade Behave. And they have little mirrors, of course. So I'm just taking a little pokey tool. It's a scrapbooking tool. And they don't have the shade or anything on the back, but they do pop out. And I believe you can buy at least some shades individually. You don't have that functionality with these larger palettes, but it is beautiful. It's pretty compact, and it's still, I think, fairly easy to store, even though it does have this kind of textured lid to it. It's a little, the plastic just flew out. It's a little difficult to open. I'd say now that I've done it a couple times, I think it's loosened up a little bit. You do get a really nice big mirror in here, which could make it really nice for travel. And even though this is somewhat pricey at $60, it's still going to be 30 some odd dollars cheaper than the Hourglass. So that's kind of worth considering. So the shades you get in here are Please Me. Need some palette Viagra here. If I can hold this. It doesn't fully open, so I'm trying to find a way to do this. So from the top corner here, we have Please Me, Sex Fantasy, Orgasm in the middle, of course, Deep Throat, and then I think the new ones are on this side, so Impulse and Zen. And you can see, even though they call this a blush palette, this is definitely leaning more towards the highlighter territory, and then this is leaning more towards the bronzer territory. So you might be able to get away with using this as a full face palette, which I might endeavor to do. So let me go ahead and do some swatches here. So I'm going to swatch these, and I will have some glitter specks on my arm from the Dior, even though I'm trying to remove them. It's just the nature of makeup, really. So like I said, the first four are going to be existing, but I do like how they have them as kind of corresponding shimmery and matte pairings here. So the first two there are Please Me and Sex Fantasy. And I'm probably not going to try to swatch all the blush shades on my cheek because they're existing. So we have Orgasm and Deep Throat. Definitely more pigment with that. And then finally, Impulse and Zen. So a little bit more kind of a beigey sheen with that. So there are all the shades of this NARS palette. So I think I'm going to stick to the kind of icy or more lilac shade of blush. And then I'm going to use this new shade as a bronzer. I'll probably do this as a highlighter on one cheek and then do the other new product as a highlighter. And just to show you kind of what these look like side by side. So hopefully you can see why I thought to compare these with those kind of lighter, pinkier shades, an icier highlighter. Again, just for reference, let me do the 4 Dior. So I swatched the 4 Dior shades closest to my elbow and then the 3 shades in the NARS that I thought were kind of similar, closest to my wrist. And while we're at it, I might as well swatch this guy next to them. So this is what the component looks like. So same basic idea here, it's just a little bit more kind of squared off. And you also get a mirror. Again, this is a little difficult to open. Sometimes what I do with these kinds of palettes is I can never find my spatula. So the end of a pair of tweezers will also work, but just take it and just kind of put it in the little groove or gap there, and sometimes it works better than others, but you can kind of just twist a little bit and that will kind of help ease it open sometimes. Anyway. So yeah, so not the easiest component. I'd love it if it were magnetic, but of course that would probably make it more expensive. So nice mirror. I like how they did this embossing pattern. Realistically, this is probably going to be more highlighter than anyone could probably use in a lifetime. They do say it's a body powder as well. So I guess if you wanted to take a really large brush and kind of go across your décolleté and that kind of thing, then sure, maybe that would make sense. I'm just going to kind of rub my finger on it, and that is what that looks like. And again, compared to the others that we have here, so the one closest to my wrist now is the single NARS highlighter, just because I think someone will ask. I do have the Deer palette from this year from Hourglass. So this one, 12-month shelf life. So same shelf life. This one made in Italy, this one made in Canada. And how many grams? You get 1.4 times 6. So you do get more product in this NARS palette. I believe all the Hourglass powders are baked though. So just to know that it's a different formulation and weights and things can kind of vary as a result. But of course that is the outer packaging. And this may just come down to preference, but if you were looking for a 6-pan holiday palette, this year. I think there's definitely some similarities there. You don't get any kind of finishing powder really, or setting powder in the NARS. So you get 3 or 4 blushes depending on how you're counting in the NARS. One that's a little bit more of a highlighter, and then one that I would definitely say is a highlighter, and then one that is more of a bronzer. And I think the pan size on the NARS is ever so slightly bigger. I think that's always my chief complaint with these, is that because they're marketing them as having bronzers and finishing powders and that kind of thing, it can just be a little bit more difficult to get a standard kind of bronzer brush in, which tends to be a little bit bigger. So I really like this Airbrush Tapered Bronzer number 150 from the IT Cosmetics and Ulta line. So let's see how this does. At least they put this kind of bronzery kind of shade in the corner. I mean, it's definitely doable. It's just a little bit more kind of finessing. So okay, I think I can definitely go in maybe a little bit more than I thought. So that's very pretty, very natural looking. Let's see how it looks kind of on the forehead. So to a certain extent, you know, colored powder is a colored powder. You can kind of use it however you see fit. And I think some people do take their blush, that's a more kind of typical blush color, onto their forehead. So yeah, that's pretty. I'm kind of doing that with the brush to try and get uneven distribution. So yeah, I think even if you are quite fair, you can go in pretty aggressively. Not so aggressively you get your hair in your eyes, but that's another question. I mean, I definitely like this more than I think I've ever liked any of the NARS Laguna shades, so that's something. So I think that's actually a really pretty kind of natural bronzer look. I'm going to add just a little bit of this pink shade here, just kind of see how that looks. Again, this is one of the permanent blushes, and I'm using a Refer number 5 here, which I think should do the trick. I don't normally go for a shade this kind of lilac-y, but you know, sometimes it's good to have products like this that make you kind of go outside of your comfort zone a little bit. So yeah, I think it's pretty. It's subtle, but it's pretty, especially layered over that kind of more bronzery shade. So let's use the highlighter type shade here. So taking the same brush as I did before, I'm going to go into that white highlighter, and I think in general, I'm going to tap that off on my hand a little bit. So a lot kind of kicked up. So I think these pressed powders from NARS are going to, hopefully you can see the difference in reflectivity there. So these are going to be a lot more present and obvious on the skin. I think there's more kind of base pigment. Let me see if I can just turn down the light here. Let me know if that helps. So that's the highlighter in the palette. And again, clean off my brush, and then going in with the other one here. And same brush, just sweeping across like so. Yeah, and this one has a much finer, it's less reflective. So, I mean, this may not be to your taste, but even so, like really trying to get in there with my brush here. I don't know if this really gives me enough kind of for the price. Let me turn down my lights again. Probably should have done this with the Dior, but oh well. So yeah, it's just not giving much, is it? Let me see if I can go back to this palette here. I'm gonna take some of that kind of more lilac-y shade that matches the blush and also go in on this side. I think that might be doing a little bit more maybe, but I can't say it's like my favorite look. I mean, if you like a bit of, or if you don't mind a bit of sparkle on the skin, I think I do prefer this one. Maybe I would just try and keep it a little bit more kind of higher up on the cheek. But yeah, it doesn't do the most. So that's these palettes in a nutshell. And I forget how many new shades are in this palette. So I think this had 3 new shades. One of the finishing powders and the 2 blushes. So I think that powder in the top middle and then the 2 blushes were all new. So I hope that helped answer kind of some questions that you might have concerning these new products, some of which are limited edition for this holiday season. I would say if you have like a $60 budget and you were looking at these 3 products, I would probably recommend the NARS blush palette out of everything else. One, because it's limited edition, so if you are interested in it, you won't be able to buy it forever. The packaging is really beautiful. It's eye-catching. I think it's fairly functional in its design. You do get a nice mirror. These 4 permanent shades probably aren't the ones I would have chosen if given the chance. But I think that's kind of the trade-off with these limited edition kind of value palettes is you sacrifice that ability to customize because of the bargain and the packaging and everything like that. I think the 2 new shades closest to my thumb here are actually pretty great. So I think NARS did a great job including those, and I think the inclusion of those make this palette a lot more functional and multi-purpose than you might think from an all blush palette. This highlighter doesn't really do much for me, so I would just recommend skipping it, especially since you can still get the kind of fun packaging from this blush palette. You're not really missing out on anything there. And the Dior palette, although it is pretty, it is permanent, so there's that. And I think with the kind of amount of product and the shelf life and everything like that, I just don't think the value is there as much. You don't get a mirror for one thing, so it's not as handy maybe to travel with. I do think this being plastic, hard plastic, it might be a little bit more kind of resistant to denting or scratching than like the Hourglass palette, if you were concerned about anything happening to those while you're traveling. So yeah, I think it's a great buy, especially if you can get it at like 20% off during one of the Sephora sales coming up, or NARS does something really great where if you like abandon your cart, sometimes they will send you just a random like 15% off code or that kind of thing. So something to look out for. I think both brands are pretty good with like packaging and shipping, so there's no huge distinction there. Dior is a little bit more kind of luxury with their packaging, but I don't think NARS is anything to sneeze at. So I hope you guys found that helpful. If you have any questions or swatch comparison requests, just leave those down below and I will post them either on my Instagram or the community page on my YouTube channel. But I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.